that is very, very important, and that's very, very crucial, because here you don't have school rules to say no. What do I do now? Do I have to go for prep? Don't I have to go for prep? Here at tertiary institution, you can miss lectures. Nobody's going to tell you anything. You can miss classes. Nobody's going to tell you anything. So the key thing is that you have to reach at a point where you analyze the situation and say, really, what do I want for myself? Okay, what do I want for myself? Because it's then, once you begin to think about that question even before you enter university, that's going to be very, very important, because that's going to help you figure out what kind of people are you going to surround yourself with, right? Trust me, you know, the things that you hear, they tend to build a stronghold in your mind. So if you are with people that are telling you, you know what, I think this quiz just hard, perhaps we'll fail, those are the things that will go into your mind. Okay, and those are the things that are going to be into your that are going to be in your mind. And so what that does to you is that it's going to hinder you from really thinking about making it, because the people that you are with are telling you that, you know what, here it's just shipikisha, you don't have to do really well, you just have to be trying and trying. But I can tell you that it's possible to go there, to go to university and do really, really well, you know. So again, but the people that you have around you, the people who you have around you are very, very important. So the first thing is that it's a different environment, and because it's a different environment, it means that it's up to you, it's up to principles that you have to hold true to. Because I, for one, being a Christian, so those were principles that helped me, so those were principles that helped me decide on which people I would hang around with. Because you, like for unza, you have a student center, people can go there, people can be drinking always, right? So it's up to you to choose to say, okay, really, where I'm going, I want to study and maybe perhaps do medicine. What kind of a person do I have to be? What kind of a doctor will I want to be? Because remember, you can want to be a doctor, an engineering, different profession, right? But it begins with who you want to be. So sometimes you may be wondering, some people go to university, they may seem, they will go through it really, really well, they'll overcome challenges, and you're like, but how come that this other one, things were opposite, they went that side, and then things just became bad. Again, it goes back to what? It goes back to deciding on the person that you want to be. Okay, so you have to decide, how hard are you going to work on your goal? Are you going to be one of those people that just say, I think maybe us, we are just statistics, us will just go there and we are not sure if we'll make it, or if maybe things will be hard, or and you just quit from there. So those are the things that you want to start thinking about. What strategies am I going to have? But we'll talk about that later on. So those are the things that you should be thinking about here, because one thing is that not everyone at your institution can be your friend. Remember, there's a difference between an acquaintance and a friend. There are certain people who you can just introduce one another and it ends there, right? So you have to take note of that, because there are certain people who they've just met people, and there and then maybe they want to start a study group without having to know the person. So they realize that they go for a study group and they're just talking about football. They go for a study group, they are talking about movies. They go for a study group, they are talking about relationships. So you have to be able to differentiate, to say who is an acquaintance and who is a friend. Okay, an acquaintance is just someone that you can just have, and just you just maybe, oh, you just greet in class, it ends there. You share material, it ends there. But it's important that you decide on the particular people that you want as friends in your life, because here's the truth: not everyone there is going for the same thing as you. You may have been going there, you are coming from a family where everyone is looking up to you to say when X finishes school, he or she is going to support the siblings. And then you are there who are just the others who are just going there just to know, because they were forced by their parents. There are people that get forced to, there are people that get forced. Yes. Okay. Okay. So yeah, you can. Okay. So just give me a short moment. So we are like it was explained in the Google or on our Facebook page. It's basically it's basically talking about preparations for tertiary education. So that's basically that. So you can just follow through. We've not really taken long. We've just started. So that's about it. So it's very, very important that you understand that not everyone there has gone for the same purpose as you. Some may have just been forced and all those things. So it becomes very, very important for you to understand those things. Then, so that was the first part, right? Understanding that university, college, tertiary education is a different environment. So that's point number one. The second point is the concept of a continuous assessment. So I'm sure you may have heard CACA. That stands for continuous assessment. Now, how this works, let me first start with secondary school. From grade 1 up to grade 12, really it doesn't really matter how your performance is on the tests, how your performance is on the quizzes, and really all these things. But when you go to tertiary education, every assignment that you have counts, every test that you have counts. So what does this entail? Many people don't understand this particular point, and that's why you'd find that they'll be realizing about the concept of a CA when things have started going downwards. Because here is what the CA is. So the way the continuous assessment is that all the assignments you have, all the quizzes you have, a quiz is simply just like a short exercise, okay? So every quiz you have, every test that you have, they are all going to count. Okay, they are all going to count. So what counting am I talking about? So like for unza first year, you have your continuous assessment making 50% for the entire course, and then the final examination that you write towards the end of the year is going to have what is going to have 50%, right? So meaning that all the tests that you write, all the quizzes that you write, all the assignments that you do, they are going to total up to 50%. And then thereafter, when you write your final exams towards the year, the end of the academic calendar, you are then going to get a what? You are then going to get that will be out of 50%. So then what now happens is that the concept of the CA, continuous assessment, is very, very important. Because what does it tell you? It tells you that from the word go, you have to be on the ground. Okay, you have to be on the ground, because sometimes some people would see, whereby they don't, because the way here things are, or the way tertiary education is that the first tests ensure that you do really, really well on the first tests. Okay, the first quizzes, the first test, ensure that you do really, really well, because the beginning will be like fundamentals, right? And as you proceed in the academic year, things begin to get more technical, not hard, I'm just saying technical. So ensure that those fundamentals that you are starting with do really, really well. Don't go there and you want to figure out the shopping malls which are around Unza, shopping malls which are around Mulungushi, shopping malls which are around CBU, which are around Evelyn Horn. Don't do that. In fact, the best thing you do is that, and I'm glad that you people you've joined this meeting, because from this time that you have before you open, it will be a good time for you to start serious studying. Okay, because remember, like we said, you have to choose the kind of person that you want to be. So it's right here that you now begin to plan and say, okay, what program am I doing? What courses will I? You need, by the time you are going into school, you need to know what the courses are. You need to have started studying. You need to have an idea about the things you are doing. And if possible, you can even do that in each and every course. You've gone ahead maybe by a topic, or even by five topics. And that's why as Excellence Academy, we feel it's very very important that people start even the tuitions and all these things even before they open. Because here's the thing: when you're home, the busiest of a day you can have is doing chores, isn't it? But then what happens later on is, when you are in school, you, like, for those maybe when you are in natural sciences, you have labs to do, you have quizzes to prepare for, you may have assignments to do. So at the end of the day, you see that when you are in school, you've got so much work to do. You have to go for labs, and for first year, each lab can be like 3 hours, so meaning you have to subtract 3 hours from your schedule. So you see, the best time that you can be able to start and push things is even before you go. Know what courses you'll be taking, know what things you'll be doing there. What is the program going to be like? What is the arrangement exactly going to be like? So that when you go there, the first tests you do well, the second test you do well. That way, once your CA is good, it becomes very very well, because you go preparing for your studies and preparing for your exam, rather knowing to say, okay, things are going to go on well. Because there have been times where people, they are going into the exam, and just for them to pass, okay, just for them to pass a course, not even do exceedingly well, just for them to pass, they are calculating that they have to get 80% of the exam. But how do you get 80% of the exam when the other things, maybe the highest that you were getting was 20%? Not that you can't improve, you can improve, but again, during the exam time, you've got what we call a study break. So you have 1 week which you stop learning, and then you just be preparing for your exams. So then what happens in that 1 week is that things get really really so much, because you have to study so many courses and balance them all together. So then what becomes important is, if your CA is good, at least you don't have the pressure that someone that may have had a bad CA, maybe going through the pressure. So the key thing is, ensure that you press through just from the start. But in case maybe you've already started your first year and your CA is not good, this is where I would like to talk to you. So the thing that is important with regards to this is about something that I call the bigger picture. So why do I call it the bigger picture? It's this: imagine that you write, okay, let's think of someone that writes a test one, right? And then maybe let's say they get 23%. Now, the bigger picture is, someone can just look at it and say, I've gotten 23%, and my friends got 70s, got 90s. Then you can start to beat yourself up and say, okay, why didn't I do well? Why didn't I do well the way the others did well? So you can either to decide to choose that path, or you can actually rechannel your energy and say, let me look at the bigger picture. This was just the test one. It only had, let's say, maybe 8% of my CA, meaning I still have the 92%, or sorry, meaning that I still have the 42% of the CA. That's if your CA is 50, right? So you're saying I still have the 42% of my CA that I can still fight for. So you see, it's about perception. So someone can say, wait, I've gotten the 23%, and they may be depressed, and they may even give up right there and then. But the approach that you may want to take is that approach where you say, you know what, I'm not going to let this thing bring me down. Yes, I may not have done well in the first test, but what you do is analyze what things didn't you do well? What things do you have to improve on? Was it that maybe you were anxious? Was it that maybe you were depressed? Was it that maybe you were scared, or because of everything that you have heard about university and about the test? So those are the key things that you have to ask yourself. Okay, why didn't I do well in the first test? What things didn't I prepare properly? What areas do I have to work on? So you see, you are looking at the bigger picture, knowing that yes, you've not done well in that particular test, but that is not it all. There is still more that is coming up, right? So that's something that's very, very important to take note of. And so even if you didn't do on the first test, there is still hope for you. Even if things may be seemingly hard and tricky, there is still hope for you. The thing is that look at the bigger picture. There is still the big chunk of the exam that is remaining. Even if your CA may not be so good, remember the exam is 50%. So why should you give up simply because your CA is not okay? Okay, you've got an entire exam that is waiting, 50%, but you'd find that someone may give up because their CA is not okay, and and they don't even do it on the exam. You see, so the bigger picture is very, very important. So that's about it. Then, so that was the second point. The second point being the concept of the CA, or continuous assessment. Then the third thing which I would like to talk about is the fastness of the system. Like how you learn. You learn at a quite fast pace. So what does this entail of you? It entails that not only should you study hard, but study smart. Okay, do you know that there are certain books which are big, but there are certain books which are relatively smaller in size, fewer pages, but they give the exact information? So that's why even before you go to university, go through what courses will you be taking, go through the syllabus, find the recommended books, compare with the past papers, which book seems to have most of the information that they are asking for in the exams. And then from there, you can then decide to say, okay, I think when the book that I'll be using to prepare for university, I'll be using this book. So it's not really about, yes, you can study hard, but the thing is that study smart, because you find that the pace at which you were doing things in secondary school may be different, because you'd find that what a lecturer can lecture you on in 1 hour, you would find that when you go to a book, when you go to a book, you'd find that it's a full topic that has got about maybe 30 pages. And you don't just have one lecture in a day. You're going to have maybe two lectures, and you find that at each and every point they are discussing a what? Different lecturers are giving you topics. So it's like almost every day you are having either one, two, or three topics that you have to study, and things power up. That's why if you can start studying, my encouragement is, if you can start studying now, start studying now. Okay, start studying now. That's why as Excellence Academy we even have the Google Classroom, where you find all the recommended books, you've got some past papers, and you've got all those things. So now it's very, very important, because what happens is that things tend to pile up so quickly. You go the first week, you realize you've done 5 topics already. You go the second week, you are still trying to recover from the 5 topics. You've got another set of topics that have been added. So you have to study hard and study smart. Okay, and study fast as well, because time is of the essence. So that's something that's very, very important. So don't hesitate to start studying. Don't say I'll start studying when I go to campus. No, don't hesitate to start studying. He who starts early is wise. Okay, so don't hesitate to start early. So that's something that's important to take note of. Then the other thing that you would want to take note of, it's about the fact that you have to put in work. Like you have to put in really really much work, because the concept is this: the lecturer may have explained a topic in 1 hour. You go to the book, you find that the topic has got maybe 30 pages. Okay, so yes, they may give you guidance, but what you have to realize is that they'll only give you a certain percentage, and for the bigger chunk, let's say 70% of the work has to come from you. So hard work is very very much of the essence. So that was the third point. The third point, take note, was that the fastness of the system, and also hard work, studying smart and studying hard and studying fast. So that's something that is very very important, because one thing that you should also take note of is that there may be some people who've done A levels. So let's say you're going for Unza School of Medicine, Mulungushi School of Medicine, and all these universities and different institutes. There are people who've done A levels, meaning they've studied the things which you are going to be doing. So then, how then do you have a playing field with people that have gone through A levels? And there are other people again who, by the time you're going into school, they've gone through the entire syllabus, and others have trained themselves to study smart and fast. So you always have to ensure that if you didn't do A levels, you ensure that you are that person that has gone through the syllabus, or that at least that has started studying. Okay, or at least someone that has started studying. So that's something that's very very important. So remember, other people have done A levels, other people, they've gone through the entire syllabus. The time that they just finished school, they started going through the syllabus. So you see that the competition is there, but that does not mean there is no hope for you. There is definitely hope for you, but it starts now. Okay, remember, this is a career that you are building. It's not a one day thing. So put in the passion, put in the effort. That's very very important. So that was still the third point. Now we go to the fourth point, and then soon we'll be having questions, huh? So fourth point is pay attention to detail. So what does it mean? What this simply means is, some people may just, just say, okay, me during grade 12, I just used to study the night before and I would do well. I would only maybe study once a week and I would do well. But here, really, the questions that you have are questions which require analysis. Okay, are questions that require you to really really have understood the topic. And for you to have understood the topic, it means that these are things that you should have read on, understood, taken time to understand. That's why the concept I said about, or rather I mentioned, where you start studying now is very good, because that way perhaps you may have noticed this, right? That when you study through a topic once, you think you've understood it, but when you study it twice, you're like, oh my goodness, I misunderstood this point. When you go through it the third time, you're like, oh my goodness, there's so much insight in here. And you find that even when you study through a topic once and you try to answer a question, it may be quickly confusing for you. But when you go through, so again, repetition, going through the things as many times as you can is very very important. So you can't do just passive reading. You have to be actively studying. Okay, actively studying. So the key thing is, don't read through. Ensure that you study. If you take notes, summarize the notes, because like I said, the study break is only going to be like a week. Okay, and you have to study for all the courses and write your exams, and you can't start going through books which are big. So the time when you are studying, the time when you are doing your studies, summarize your notes so much that during the study break you can go through the entire syllabus within a couple of hours or within a day before the exam, because you've summarized, you've just taken note of the key points, and key points, and then those are the things that you are building on. Okay, so and the moment you look at the point, oh, I remember this point. You see, that way you make things easy. When it comes to uh, having an exam or an assessment. Then, on the issue of paying attention to detail, is that you are going to be given notes by your lecturers, you are going to be given handouts, there will be tutorial sheets, there will be questions after every topic. And then, so the key thing is go through them as soon as you can, okay? Because the key thing is that it can be so easy to think, you know what, my friends have solved that tutorial sheet, so they'll just give me the answers and I'll move on with my life. It can be so easy to say that, but what happens is that lecturers tend to sometimes repeat questions in the tutorial sheets and bring them in on the exam. Common of this is mathematics at UNZA and chemistry. Okay, so the same question which was in the tutorial sheet, they will bring it, and your friend solved it for you, and you got the answers. You got the answers, and you even done well on the assignment, but you didn't participate during the solving. And then you see that they bring the question, you got it right on the assignment, but you failed to get it right on the exam. Imagine how devastating that can be. Imagine how devastating that can be. Because you'll be like, but my friends did this question. I even remember writing the answer, but you don't know how they did it. So when you're given any handouts, any notes, any tutorial sheets, do them, go through them. You can even go through them with friends, but ensure that you are actively taking part. Don't just be on your phone and waiting for results, for answers to pop up. Actively get involved, and that way you won't forget, should it be brought in an exam or perhaps on a test. So that's something, or even on a quiz. Okay, so ensure that you go through such as soon as you can. So that's something that's very very important to take note of. Okay, and then on this, the other thing that I would like to talk about. Okay, so the fifth point now, we're only having about how many points? 6 points. So the fifth point is about you are your own person. Okay, so the thing that is very very important is that, remember that you are your own person. You've got things that work for you that don't work for certain people, and there are certain things that work for other people that don't work for you. There are people that manage studying throughout the night, and they'll be relatively active during the day, but others, when they study through the night, it will be catastrophe during the day. So again, know what works for you. And I'm saying this because, what really happens usually when people go to university, they write their first test, they see that someone was the highest, they try to copy the strategy that that person uses. So you and then again someone else comes out first, and they try to copy that strategy. So what you are doing is you are trying to get different strategies for people and trying to fit them into your life. Now, I'm not saying that it's wrong for you to inquire on how the performing students are, what's causing them to perform well. There is nothing wrong with you inquiring. Okay, there's definitely nothing wrong with you going to someone that has done well on a test and say, my friend, tell me, how did you uh why or how did you do well in this test? Oh no, for me, I used these lecture videos, I attended this and that. Then you get that insight, but that is just to enlighten you, and then you try to use that in your own context, meaning you try to see, okay, is this really something that is going to fit for me? Okay, that's going to be fit for me. Because here is the thing, you are going to see people who study a lot, but their results don't correlate. And you're going to see people that you rarely see with books, but they are the ones who are doing really, really well. like they are very, very outstanding. But these are people that you rarely see with what? These are people that you rarely see with books. Okay? But then you see that they are outstanding. Not that they don't study. No, 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 no. It's just because they've got a way of doing it. And then you have certain people who you just be seeing them every time. They just look serious, but when you look at their results, their results are not correlating. So what does this mean? The truth is, you are your own person. Do what works for you. So do not be offended or jealous at how much someone does. So you have to know yourself inside out. And I cannot stress this point enough. So what works for your friend may not work for you. You can have a friend whom you study with at the exact time for the same amount of time, but your results differ. So, because you are your own person, not be intimidated by how much others are studying, focus on what works for you. So, that's something important. And talking about this, I would like to also add in the issue of study groups. You have to realize that, you know, don't just go into a study group because someone says study groups worked for them. So don't just go into a study group because someone said study group works for them. Know yourself. Okay? Because there are some people who they've joined a study group and instead of improving, they actually see that their performance started going down. So, and I'm not saying study groups are bad. I'm just saying go into one because you know it will be helpful for you. They stay in study groups, they go there, they start laughing, they start chatting, they start playing, they talk about football, they talk about TV dramas, and time is running out, right? So again, study groups, for some they may be helpful, for some they may not work for you. So simply because the one that is doing well in your class is in a study group should not simply just compel you to be in one as well. Again, choose what works for you. The fact that the one that is doing well studies alone does not necessarily mean you have to be studying alone again. So again, maybe you may need a study group. So again, choose what works for you because you are your own person. Then the sixth point is that life goes on. Okay? Life goes on. So what do I mean? In as much as you go to university, uh even though you are in school, life still goes on. Meaning your friends, your family members, and if you are a Christian, your church is still around. And I myself being a Christian, I would say this really helped me. Like God was really helpful to me because no, what happens in certain circumstances, you find that things are so hard, and then maybe you read the Bible and you just get encouraged, you just get strengthened, and then you've got somewhere where you can put yourself back on. And then again, friends are important because they are going to encourage you even at those times where you feel low, and of course family equally the same. But now, if you're a Christian, you put God first, but in as much as you do that, you have to know that praying does not substitute hard work. So that's something that I want to dwell much on there. But otherwise, the key thing is that even as you go into school, you have to be at a point where you are balancing this. And by balancing, what I mean is don't what say, because again, the key thing, the mistake that you may make is someone just focuses so much on school, so much that by the time the academic calendar is halfway, they've burnt out. By burning out is where someone gets tired. Like they just start thinking school is just bothering them. School is just frustrating them. School is not doing them any good. Why? Because they've really been, like they've put everything on hold. And so now when something doesn't go well, they are traumatized. Not only traumatized, but you quickly burn out. Think of this, playing the same game every day, no matter how good it is, you're going to burn out of it, isn't it? So, What you can do rather is to say, you know what I'm going to do, the approach that I'm going to take is this. I'm going to have a schedule, and we'll talk about a study schedule soon. That will be the seventh point, talking about how to make a start. And I'm not saying a study timetable, I'm saying a study schedule, and I'll explain the difference. So, having done that, okay, so now that's something that's very, very important, because if you play football, ensure that, yeah, you can study maybe on Friday, and play some football. Maybe you watch some Tuma movies, you've studied, and before you sleep you watch a movie. That way you don't burn out. Okay, or that way you don't burn out, because there are other things that you are doing some things which you are enjoying, and so you are not burning out. But when you just focus on one thing, you find that you can burn out. And that's the time where you find, I'm sure maybe some of you, this may have even happened to you on grade two, at grade 12, where you just feel like, oh, I think school is just a burden now, right? Because there's nothing apart from school that so that's something, that's a point that will be very, very important to take note of. So now, before we can talk about the study schedule, I would like to talk about the pressure formula. So you may know from grade 12 physics that pressure is equals to force over area. So now let's just zero in on that. So pressure is equals to force over area. So the pressure is the school pressure, the stress that you feel. Okay, people say, school has put me under pressure. So that's the pressure that we are talking about. Then force. I want you to think of the force as what? The force to be the amount of work that you have to do, meaning the syllabus, isn't it? Great. Now, everyone in the class that you are going to be in, you have the same syllabus. In short, you have to learn the same things, isn't it? So now, meaning that the force for everyone is going to be the same, because you have to know the same things in the syllabus, right? Then the area, okay, so the denominator there is area. So what is the area? The area there is for your perspective, how you view things. So, and I'm going to explain there. So, what this simply means about the pressure formula, what this simply means is that everyone that you are in the same class with, you have to study the same things. You have to know the same things. So, I mean, the force there is constant. So, the only difference is your perception. Why is it that some people tend to be under so much pressure than others? You see, some people, they'll say, no, that one even stopped bathing. Someone even stopped, maybe let's say they are Christian, they even stopped going to church. They stopped doing this. Someone even starts looking a little bit dirty, but still more, they are not doing well in class. But you see, someone looks really smart and does really well in class. Then you're wondering what's happening here. So again, it's about the perception. How do you perceive things? Okay, what is your perception about school? So again, this is where now your study schedule comes in. So what is a study schedule? A study schedule is not simply a study timetable. A study schedule is where you sit down and say, from where I am right now and to where I'll be having, let's say, a test or tests and the examination, how many weeks do I have, and how many courses, or rather how many topics do I have in each and every course. So let's talk about mathematics, for instance. You say, okay, so mathematics has got, let's say, for maybe, let's say, just say 20 topics, right? And physics has got maybe 15 topics, and so forth. So then what you are doing with a study schedule is, you then say and say, okay, there are 50 topics which sorry, like, let's say a course has got 15 topics, right? And then you say my exam will be 8 months from now. So you are saying, how? Okay, let's make the topics more realistic. Let's say you've got 30 topics, right? And then your exam is in 8 months. So then you have to start to plan, to make a study schedule and say, okay, how many topics should I be covering in a month for me to be able to finish the syllabus at least a month before the exams. That should be your thinking, because you need that 1 month to consolidate everything, right? So maybe you say, yeah, so how many topics should I be covering per month to ensure that I finish the syllabus a month before the exams? Then you find, okay, a month I have to be doing 8 topics. Okay, that's great. Then you now say, if I'm doing 8 topics in a month, it means that how many topics should I be doing in a week? I should be doing 2 topics. You get it, right? So then you know to say, for this course, if I'm to meet my target to finish the syllabus before, or rather a month before my exams, I have to be studying at least 2 topics in a week. So then now that's going to guide you as you make a study schedule. Now, once you do this for all the courses, what this does is that you've got a sense of security, and you are less likely to feel depressed, you are less likely to feel anxious. What's your reason? Because the key thing that makes students anxious is, will I be able to finish the syllabus before the exams? But once you've done that analysis, then you know to say the schedule that you have is going to adequately prepare you for your exams. And what that happens is that now that area, remember the pressure formula, pressure is equals to force over area. So that means now your perspective now and your mood now is increased. And when you've got a bigger picture, okay, your bigger perspective, because you're thinking ahead, right? So you're not just focusing on that particular test that may have gone well or not gone well, but you're having a bigger picture because of study schedule. So then your area increases, and when your area increases, we know that pressure is indirectly proportional to what, to area. So when your area increases, when your perspective increases, then your pressure decreases, so your stress levels decrease. That's how come you can be a student that is not at uh so you can be a student that's not stressed so much that, you see people stop bathing, people stop doing all those things and everything, and they're saying it's school pressure. But there are others who are bathing, who are cooking nice food. Some people just opt to start buying food, but there are others who are able to cook food for themselves and still pass. So it's all about time management, and that's where the study schedule comes in. And that's where the what's this that's where the pressure formula comes in. So really, uh these are some of the 7 things that I feel will be very, very helpful for you as you start your journey. And if you've already started your journey, like I said, you can still make amends at this juncture. Okay? It's never too late for you to turn things around. So,